IGN Live at Comic-Con. In traditional Lord of the Rings style, our next interview was originally going to be 5 hours long and released as a 4-disc box set, but we decided to tighten it up a little bit. Joining us to discuss the Prime Video original series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, please welcome Ben Walker, Lloyd Owen, Lian Wadham, Morfydd Clark, Nazanin Boniadi, Charlie Vickers, Markella Kavenagh, Dylan Smith, Sophia Nomvete, and Tyroe Muhafidin. Welcome, everybody. And I want to throw it to the whole cast to start because, we've gotten a good idea of what we can expect to see in terms of like the aesthetics, but what exact threat sets each of your characters to, motivates them to spring into action? Morfydd, I feel like you're a good person to start with.
We're such a big group, we're all like...
we're like, which one?
So my character, Galadriel, is convinced that there is an evil rising. However, at the beginning, no one else agrees with her. So she's on a quest to be believed.
Yeah. And in the trailer yesterday, we saw them alluding to a time of peace, but it doesn't really seem like Galadriel is fully,
No.
She agrees with that. So what can you tell us about what she's so worried about in the beginning there?
So Galadriel is incredibly old, one of the oldest elves in Middle-earth. She's seen a lot of terrible, terrible things. She's lost so many members of her family, and she's grieving and homesick and can't believe that life could ever be peaceful and good. Yeah. And she turns out to be right.
Well, so we can see. And in one of the trailers, there was a line about, dwarves and elves and, men all having these different concerns. And we have a lot of people representing a lot of different, peoples on the stage. So how do your characters react to that kind of mixing and clashing of different peoples?
Well, it's a reflection of the world that we live in, Suddenly we have an immense amount of visual representation and a vast accessibility for every single person in the world to be able to stare at a screen and see a version of themselves staring right back at them. So for us to play with each other as we play together in the world every single day is, is exactly where it should be. And what a great way to relive Tolkien's work.
Yeah.
And Sophia, I'm really excited about your character because you're playing the first female dwarf that we've ever seen on screen. So what was it like to take that on?
It was amazing, she's the first to be seen. We get her in a role of prominence and power, and we get to see another side to, first of all, we see the Dwarven Kingdom very much alive and in its prime. Yeah. But I am holding up the torch for, the women of that particular race and culture and kingdom. And so to step into that role for many, many reasons and for many people around me that I know and don't know, it's an iconic moment that I'm really, really proud and honored to be a part of.
Yeah, and the dwarfs are just so cool and so
Genius.
funny. Yeah, love the dwarves.
I am so excited to see the dwarves because I feel like we're getting a lot more of their society. But we also have a couple of Harfoots here. And of course, people are going to see Harfoots and immediately think of hobbits. But what sets you guys apart from hobbits?
I guess I would say, physically we share a lot of similarities. We both have the feet and we have the ears. But I think the biggest difference would be their circumstances. So when we meet the hobbits, they have the Shire, they have that sense of home and that one sense of place, and the Harfoots are still trying to find that. And the character that I play particularly just wants to see how they can improve their quality of life and find that home together, and that maybe it's actually a way that they haven't thought of before, and maybe that's through taking more risks. I'm sure Dylan could
I think one of the biggest differences is the Harfoots. Unlike the hobbits sort of bask in their bounty and live a very unconscious, idyllic life, whereas the Harfoots count their blessings every second of every day to stay light and full of sort of tricks and whimsy, and costs a lot. We have to work through a lot of suffering over a long time to sort of, stay a happy hobbit.
And we have some people playing royalty here too, and what they say, heavy is the head that wears the crown. So what do your your royal lineage and royal families, what role do they play in the larger scheme of Middle Earth here?
Hey, King. That's you.
Yeah, I'm king of the elves.
Yeah. And
Pretty cool.
what is it like to kind of portray that kind of, agelessness and wisdom and also, regalness?
Well, much in the same way that Morfydd was speaking about, that you have to also imagine that they're immortal, that everyone they've known and loved, they've seen die over and over again for thousands of years. And then the question becomes, how do you muster the strength to have hope? How do you muster the strength to continue to love and protect Middle-earth? And my job is largely like herding cats. That the elves acknowledge and love the frailty of man. And that's something that Tolkien understood. He celebrated our faults. And that's the task of a good leader, to bring out the best in the people that you are entrusted with taking care of.
Yeah. And I'm also really curious about, all the work that went into making the show, of course. And during the Hall H panel that I was lucky enough to go to yesterday, Morfydd and Charlie, you talked about some free diving training that you had to do. Could you expand on that? And also, why did you have to do that?
There's an underwater sequence that happens early on in the show. And I guess it was in order to make us comfortable filming and acting underwater. I think we had to train to basically be able to hold our breath for the duration of the take, pretty much, which could be quite long. So
Charlie learned to hold his breath for like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Charlie
He's being humble. You guys, you know.
It was you train by doing it statically, so you just lie in the water, you don't move, and then you can get to quite a few minutes doing that way. So then when it comes to actually moving and swimming, you don't last nearly as long. It's over much quicker.
I was lucky that I'm stationary in this,
But
I was underwater. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say,
So I was underwater for, I think, an hour and a half was the longest, with my eyes closed and just with an oxygen tank. And I thought I'd find it, I was like, this is going to be quite stressful and quite claustrophobic. And I just loved it. It was so peaceful. I like I was floating through space. Whenever they were like, do you want to come up for a break? I was like,
And it's a nice skill to have. You can say you can do that now.
yeah, true.
Yeah, and we asked fans on Twitter for some of the questions that they had. So one of them wants to know, what aspect of Rings of Power do you think will surprise fans the most?
I think just the size and scope, that somehow Tolkien's imagination was almost boundless, and somehow this project has tried to marshal some of that imagination and done an incredible job of putting his imagination onto a screen, and it's just the scope and scale and range, from epic to really intimate. It covers it all.
And because of the nature of the show being a series, each episode is its kind of own film. So you can be fully immersed in each world so that when the journey begins, you can really, buckle up.
Yeah.
Go on the ride.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to see it, and I know all of our fans can't either. So thank you all so much for talking about it with me. The Rings of Power premieres September 2nd, only on Prime Video. But to hold you over until then, there's a lot more Comic-Con on the way. Because after this quick break, we'll be talking to the cast of The Sandman. We'll be right back after this.
I want to watch that.